So this week, with the World Rugby Awards wrapping up the best stuff in rugby over the last decade, got us thinking, what's your favourite moment in rugby from the last 10 years? I mean, there's a few obvious ones. You've got the All Blacks winning back-to-back World Cups. You've got Sia Khaleesi lifting that trophy last year. I mean, for me, it's hard to look beyond Wales beating England 30 points to 3. However, I do have to, if I'm picking one, it's Wales knocking England out of that World Cup. We've got a few of those to choose from. There's loads. Please send us loads. Send us any thoughts you have on the best moments in rugby from the last 10 years. So there's only one place to start, with something that may well be looked back on in 10 years' time as a potential highlight of this decade. So the Autumn Nations Cup really delivered in its final round. Georgia got to play a fantastic game against Fiji, who finally played. We finally got to see Fiji, and boy, did they play. They did plenty of rugby. It was a really, really fun game and warmed us up for, then, Scotland against Ireland. And again, Scotland looked fantastic for the first kind of half and a bit. However, 2 tries by Keith Earls kind of managed to suppress them a bit, and from there, Ireland kind of rode it out. And despite a fantastic individual try by Dylan van der Merwe, Scotland were able to strike back, and Ireland saw it out. It was the kind of game that both teams will take almost nothing but positives from, because the final game was another game that, again, started this year off in the Six Nations, Wales against Italy. Now, it was a 0 win for Wales in the Six Nations. It was not that way here, as we got to see how much Italy improved under Franco Smith over this last year. As they shot out, they were ahead with 25 minutes to go. They scored a fantastic try. Stephen Varney was fantastic on his first start for his country, playing against the country where he grew up. It was a really strong performance by Italy. And then, however, Tipuric and Faletau kind of came through and pulled Wales out of that hole. Tipuric himself scoring a try with Faletau giving the final pass. However, the real place to talk, the real exciting point was the final on Sunday. So, France turned up with a dispute the clubs, meaning they had to play what was largely a second team, as a young, inexperienced side. And yet they completely flew out the blocks. They scored a great try through Bryce Dulin early on and kept in front the whole way. Right on half-time, they had a fantastic period of defence. I'll get on to more of this slightly later, but it was a really, really impressive performance by France, only in the last play of the game, in the 79th minute, for them to concede a try to Luke Cowan-Dickie. Owen Farrell slots over the conversion under immense pressure to bring it to extra time. From there, Farrell had another shot in sudden death to win it for England. He hits the post, doesn't quite go over, and they play on in a completely breathless, frantic, and really properly exciting fashion until eventually another penalty is given, and Farrell this time steps up, no doubt, nails it. And England are the first ever Autumn Nations Cup champions. Their second trophy in 4 weeks, 5 weeks? And for the likes of Henry Slade, Johnny Hill, this is their, I think, 18th trophy after how well Exeter have been doing in about 4 days. So huge congratulations to them. And also to the All Blacks, who won yet again the Rugby Championship this year, stealing it in its Tri-Nations form off the Springboks who won it last year. So, I mean, they didn't actually play this weekend, but the moment Australia or Argentina failed to hit 90 plus points, it started to look quite good for the All Blacks. It finished as a 16-0 draw after they finished 15-0 as a draw when they played a few weeks ago. These two teams remain incredibly level. Australia were pretty much on top throughout the game, but Argentina just managed to chip away and just keep in the game as much as they could, kicking the points whenever they got them, taking every opportunity they had. Salika Lotto saw a red card, but Australia managed to scrap back and remain there and take eventually quite a hard-earned draw for what's been an interesting year, an interesting first few months under Dave Rennie. He's currently a 50% draw ratio, which must be the highest in rugby we've ever seen. I can't think of another coach who's ever got for a full calendar year with 50% draws. However, a game that did take place in New Zealand was Moana Pacifica played their first ever match against the Maori All Blacks. But more important than the game itself, and there was a one really incredible try. Just have a look at this. Really spectacular bit of skill. However, before that, perhaps more important, perhaps more exciting, was the pre-match showdown, the Hackers taking place. It was a spectacle beyond. You didn't need to play a game of rugby after that. That's what the crowd paid for. The crowd, which were actually there, paid for. I mean, poor. So in club rugby, much like Farrell in the Autumn Nations Cup, last-minute kicks seem to be the order of the week. Every game seemed to come down to one, apparently. So in the Premiership, Bristol had to kick a last-minute penalty to win it right at the death. In the Currie Cup, Teon Swanepoel, young Namibian fullback, on his first start in the competition, managed to kick the winner against the Western Province. Fantastic kick. And then we also had, in the Pro 14, slightly different, the Dragons haven't won in Scotland, haven't beaten Glasgow away since 2012. They're ahead by 6. Last minute score. Glasgow next to the post. Brandon Thompson steps up to slot over what should be an easy conversion, and he can't quite get it. And speaking of last minute kicks then, how about having a closer look at England's win over France in that final of the Autumn Nations Cup?
Let's start at the beginning, before the game. France were written off, cast aside, left to play this fixture of a team who, prior to playing Italy last week, had fewer caps between the starting 15 than Alan Wynne-Jones has alone. And yet, they more than took it to largely the same England 15 who contested last year's World Cup final. Bryce Doulas scored the opening try, but this phenomenal passage of play right before half-time was what really sent a statement. France mean business, no matter their 15. However, England began to wrestle back some control, but a few misses by Farrell and 2 penalties by cheeky bench boy Louis Carbonell kept them 7 points adrift until the final play. England manager Luke Cowan-Dickey crosses. Farrell can just about convert despite pressure, and so we enter the most frantic passage of the year. This was sudden death, and any mistake ends the game. It loses it for your side, and it almost happened 1 minute in. Farrell hits the post here, and we were all granted extra time after all. Both sides had their chances, but England remained disciplined when France had theirs, and France might have felt maybe they did too, but the chance was ultimately handed to Owen Farrell, England's captain, to bring the title home. Farrell has missed a few up until this point, but there was no way he was ever missing this. It flew through and brought down the curtain on an incredible fight from a young French team who can be immensely proud of it, as everyone else becomes immensely worried about what France can do in a few years' time, and gave us a tournament finale that will live long in the memory.
So last week we asked you for the greatest 15 of the decade, the last decade gone by. We had quite a few shouts come in. A few people sent in full 15s. Nonu and O'Driscoll in the centres, man. Smith and Carter combine at halfback. Again, Dan Carter seems to pop up in every team I'm seeing. Very understandably, you know. He was quite good. Apart from him for right, he puts Jonathan Sexton, who's of course nominated for Player of the Decade, in at 10. We have Liam Williams on the wing from him as well. Ben Smith pops up regularly. Roy Best comes in quite a few teams, as a player who played throughout the entire decade. There's a few outside shouts. So Kieran puts Damien Penaud in on the wing, which interesting shout, but I quite like it. He also puts Juan Manuel Gaminara in at 6, which I love desperately for my heart. We have Semyon Drandra coming in on the wing, Mal Nonu, and again Bowden Barrett slots in over Dan Carter. Max Chambers says Emily Scarrett has to be the first name on the team sheet for both genders. No other player finds it so easy to make a match-winning chance. Absolutely. Julian Surveyor, who I think very deserved. People forget just how good he was for the All Blacks for those first kind of 6 or 7 years of this decade, of the last decade rather. Oh man, great shout by Billy. Juan Martin Fernandez Lobe, Matt Gitto he also mentions. Jack Nowell has to be on for shot, not a bad shout. Shotter Horrier says Askell. Yes, I really like that. As he said, it's gone from being a novelty tier 2 hooker who could throw some great skill to a genuine World 15 contender. Love that. Gerardo slots into Texi's team. I like that. Again, a man who was fantastic for France for a very long time, even when France were not fantastic around him. There's loads of great stuff. I love the thought of just a Nonu and O'Driscoll centre partnership. George North slots into a few teams. That's quite interesting. I think Richie McCourt is in everyone who's named a full 15s team. Matt Webb gives, however, maybe my favourite suggestion, which is Alan Wynne-Jones in every single position. Alan Wynne-Jones on the wing, Alan Wynne-Jones at 10. Make it happen. Make it happen, Wayne. Send us your favourite moments from the last decade, your favourite rugby moments from the last 10 years, and I intend to read lots of them out. spend lots of time looking back over them on YouTube as well. Next week, please, when you join us for more of the feed.